Hey there and welcome fellow seekers to my wonderful bedside studio in the Netherlands. For episode 11 of I'm Just Gonna Say It. Today I want to talk a little bit about spirituality, science, and what connects them. Say hi to my co-host here, Oscar. Let's go for number 11. So, as y'all might understand by now, this channel is all about saying the stuff that needs to be said, in my opinion. And I'm a scientist guy by nature. I studied psychology in university, so I'm all about the scientific method in general. But I also want to talk about stuff like spirituality on this channel. Now, the problem with that is that spirituality and evidence, which is what I usually rely on being trained as a scientist, is not a thing that you usually find in spirituality, or at least not up until today. It's always been two separate worlds, and and they haven't been too good of friends to each other. Let's put it mildly. But since the key to marrying these two things has actually been right under our noses for more than a century now. One of these things is quantum physics, obviously, and parapsychology is also definitely doing its part there. Now, when most people think about spirituality, they either think about Buddhism and Zen Buddhists, like my friend Oscar here, or they think about very floaty people talking about um, staying in your energy, or very vague terms like that. Usually because they themselves don't have a clue what they're talking about. Some very advanced people in spirituality may actually understand that stuff, and when they try to explain it, it also ends up in a pretty vague story often, because they're trying to explain gravity to an ant, basically, and that's not gonna work. So when I talk about spirituality, I mean understanding concepts like duality, ego is a very important one, and for instance, the nature of reality. What is reality? And most people don't give this even a moment's thought, and they should, and they're starting to do so. Actually, I mean, you can just the last couple of years and the last couple of months, especially, you can, if you look around you and look with the right eyes, you can see that everybody's vibration is starting to rise. Now I realize that sounds just as vague as the people I just accused, but if you look with the right eyes, I promise you, you will see that people you would never expect it from in the past are doing marvelous things, are doing stuff for other people without wanting something in return, or just giving you a smile instead of a frown, which you usually got. It can be small things too, of course. Everything starts with that. But I digress, as usually. Quantum physics. What can quantum physics teach us about spirituality? Quantum physics is especially interesting when it comes to reality and the nature of reality. Um, to understand it all, you actually should forget the whole world reality, because it totally messes up your concept of the thing, because it implies that there is a objective reality separate from the observer, and quantum physics has proven to us that apparently that is not the case. When there is no observer, there is no solid objective reality. There is only a soup of endless possibilities, and the chances of those possibilities actually happening. And not until an observer turns around and looks at those possibilities one of those possibilities actually becomes solid. Now this may sound like magic maybe, but it's been proven. I want to show you a very childlike but excellent explanation of a thing called the double-slit experiment. For those of you who are unfamiliar with it, it is essential knowledge. So here we go. Okay, so let that sink in for a moment. Not until an observer looks at it does matter behave like matter. It's a mindfuck if it's the first time you hear it, I'm aware of that. But it's essential knowledge in trying to make sense of the world and trying to understand what's happening around you. And as I don't want to overload anybody, and I know how much effort it can take to process weird information like this, I'm gonna leave it at that for this video. Please like, share and subscribe. Love you guys, and see you for the next video, probably tomorrow. Bye bye. The following clip is courtesy of the movie What the Bleep Do We Know Down the Rabbit Hole. You definitely should see it. Showtime.
And here we are, the granddaddy of all quantum weirdness, the infamous double-slit experiment. To understand this experiment, we first need to see how particles, or little balls of matter, act. If we randomly shoot a small object, say a marble, at the screen, we see a pattern on the back wall where they went through the slit and hit. Now, if we add a second slit, we would expect to see a second band duplicated to the right. Now, let's look at waves. The waves hit the slit and radiate out, striking the back wall with the most intensity directly in line with the slit. The line of brightness on the back screen shows that intensity. This is similar to the line the marbles make. But when we add the second slit, something different happens. If the top of one wave meets the bottom of another wave, they cancel each other out. So now there is an interference pattern on the back wall. Places where the two tops meet are the highest intensity, the bright lines, and where they cancel, there is nothing. So, when we throw things, that is, matter, through two slits, we get this, two bands of hits. And with waves, we get an interference pattern of many bands. Good so far. Now, let's go quantum. An electron is a tiny, tiny bit of matter, like a tiny marble. Let's fire a stream through one slit. It behaves just like the marble, a single band. So, if we shoot these tiny bits through two slits, we should get, like the marbles, two bands. What? An interference pattern. We fired electrons, tiny bits of matter through. But we get a pattern like waves, not like little marbles. How? How could pieces of matter create an interference pattern like a wave? It doesn't make sense. But physicists are clever. They thought, maybe those little balls are bouncing off each other and creating that pattern. So, they decide to shoot electrons through one at a time. There is no way they could interfere with each other. But after an hour of this, the same interference pattern is seen to emerge. The conclusion is inescapable. The single electron leaves as a particle, becomes a wave of potentials, goes through both slits, and interferes with itself to hit the wall like a particle. But mathematically, it's even stranger. It goes through both slits, and it goes through neither. And it goes through just one, and it goes through just the other. All of these possibilities are in superposition with each other. But physicists were completely baffled by this. So they decided to peek and see which slit it actually goes through. They put a measuring device by one slit to see which one it went through and let it fly. But the quantum world is far more mysterious than they could have imagined. When they observed, the electron went back to behaving like a little marble. It produced a pattern of two bands, not an interference pattern of many. The very act of measuring or observing which slit it went through meant it only went through one, not both. The electron decided to act differently, as though it was aware it was being watched. And it was here that physicists stepped forever into the strange, never-world of quantum events. What is matter? Marbles or waves? And waves of what? And what does an observer have to do with any of this? The observer collapsed the wave function simply by observing.
I almost forgot. Oscar wants to say bye too. Hey, bye, Oscar.